Welcome to 2025 and the Working Audio Tools podcast, the home of all things mixing and mastering on YouTube and all your streaming platforms. This year, we are endeavouring to deliver more mix comparisons with constructive and helpful feedback as always, and we would very much appreciate your engagement in the comments. Again, as always, we hope you've had a great start to the year. This week, we have a track which came from an SSL and mastering.com live stream where they did a mix-off with two SSL mix engineers, and we have taken those multi-tracks and we are going to do our very own mix-off with myself, Ed Thorne, and Paul Third.
Yes, welcome back everyone. We're in a new year, 2025, and as promised, we are going to deliver the mix multi-tracks. So, I think first we'll speak very, very quickly, because I don't want to waste your time, about the multi-tracks. So Ed, what was your thoughts on these multi-tracks and how did you feel that this song was to mix?
They're good quality recordings. I don't know who the artist is, and I spent a while trying to track this down.
I couldn't find it either.
I couldn't track this down, but it sounds like one of the Produce Like a Pro tracks we've done, whose name I've forgotten as well. So, we don't know who this is by, but our apologies. Credit to the artist. They're good sounding multi-tracks. I didn't use any samples. I haven't looked at this session for a while. This was the first track I did when I got the Amphions. So this was the first mix off those speakers. I think it came out pretty well. Obviously, this was like 3 or 4 months ago now, so I've listened to it since, and there's obviously things I would now do differently, but that's such as life. Paul has had the advantage here of having been able to study my track for months to really hone his with his competitive. No, Paul's probably just like mixed it this morning or something and just thrown it out.
To be honest, I have taken a little bit of time, but not too much. So this mix is going to be my kind of experiment on how my whole translation kind of pathway works. So as I've mentioned in episodes, I start on the MacBook Pro normally, depending on where I am, but due to where I'm working just now, I'll start on the MacBook Pro. I'm using the Chord Mojo 2 as the headphone amp.
I was going to say, have you started mixing on the MacBook Pro speakers? Right.
No.
Key information, Chord Mojo. Which headphones are you running off those for this?
So the Ananda Nanos. So the Ananda Nanos are my kind of most portable monitoring system. So I take that everywhere with me because it's the one I trust the most. So, most 85% of the mix was done on Ananda Nanos. I'd probably say 90%. And then I used the Sony MDR MV1s to check the soundstage and, the kind of the reverb tails and ambience and stuff like that. Then I moved into the Atmos room for an hour. I had an hour. And so I checked on the iLoud MTM Precisions and also the Calais LP system with the sub. So I tested it in there. And then when I came in this morning, I tested it on the Calais IN5s. I was honestly, Ed, I had this big issue, me being me, where I'd leave everything to the last minute. And I thought, this is going to be simple. I'll just put that session on the MacBook and put that session on the Windows system, and I'll have all the plugins in that I use. And then me being me forgot that, I've not got that installed. Oh shit, I've not got that installed. And then I realised that in terms of external hard drives, you have to format them a certain way for Windows and Mac. And I didn't know that. And luckily I had Hee-Haw on the other external hard drive, so I had to erase the 3-4 files that were on it and then reformat it, put stuff on so I could go backwards and forwards. So I've got a system now where I've got a mixed session template that I can do on either the desktop in Windows or the MacBook Pro. All the systems are worked, all the shortcuts are done. So basically workflow wise, I can work on both and interchange between them.
I was going to ask how you've moved between the two, because I can't imagine the plugins are all totally different format. But I think what you're telling the audience is soon you will be replacing your crappy PC for a Mac in the studio, right?
Nope, absolutely not. What I'm saying is you can make the two of them work, and I found a way of making them work where I can just genuinely put it on a hard drive.
Can't you just have a server that serves both rooms?
I probably could, but you know what my internet's like in here, so I wouldn't trust it.
Data chain it all between. Anyway, whatever. That's a you problem, not an us problem, and we don't care. So anyway, start the new year as we intend to continue. Cool. This is Paul Third's mix of Roses by artist unknown. The Working Audio Tools podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at DistroKid for all of your musical distribution needs. Don't forget, you can't just upload your songs to Amazon, Spotify, iTunes, or Tidal. You have to go through a music distribution service. There are many out there, but DistroKid is the one that Paul and myself use. They don't take any of your royalties. You keep 100% of the streaming revenue that you earn. For just $1.92 a month or $22.99 a year, you can upload unlimited songs. Your lyrics can be found in Google and other places. You get the blue Spotify verified checkmark, and you can create royalty splits between yourselves and fellow contributors. You also get access to the new DistroKid iPhone app for editing and uploading songs and accessing your statistics on the move. There are plenty of other tools available on DistroKid. We'll go through those in another section. All right, that was Paul Third's mix of Roses. Wow, immediately, very impressive, Paul.
Thank you.
Lovely guitar sound at the start. Good placement of that. And some BVs come in, and I don't remember them.
You've not got them, so
I don't think
didn't
they're
know
in
what
my
happened.
mix, and that means I don't know where they are. So either they've been gated out, or they're I don't have the file because I didn't notice them. So yeah, they do make the intro a bit better. So yeah, they're going to be missed in my version for sure. Yeah, the BVs sound great, man. It sounds like they're placed in the background with the effects, like distance, but because they're so loud, they actually sound quite forward. And I wonder if they compete in a few places slightly. Right. That would be my only minor criticism on that. Yeah, good use of width and stereo imaging, and when the chorus comes in, you fill out the gaps with stuff, which is great. It's quite a wet mix. Again, definitely compared to mine. Even on the Amphions, it sounds moist. What a word. It's one of my moist and slicer, two of my favourite words. I mean, on the heads, which really emphasise depth you created with reverb. Yeah, it sounds. It wants to sound full, but I feel like everything's quite forward. You've almost done an Ed Thorne mix where everything needs to be heard all the time. With then the effect, with the exception of some of the slide guitars, which are far back. So I suppose it evens it out. It's just a very, forward and back, wide. You've just covered everything, haven't you? It's a very square is the word I'm thinking of. Very 3D, just dense in all directions, isn't it? Which is good. Now there's a resonance in those slide guitars that was a bit of an issue. I remember. I can't remember what frequency it was, but there's something, maybe, I don't want to guess a frequency, but there's something poking out on those, I felt. And there's something over the whole thing that's a little bit bitey, but it's up at like 12 to 14 kilohertz, where it's that's slightly distracting for me, but that's just you can just master that out. So that won't be a problem. I don't really have any comments. It's a very, very good mix. I'd say if I were being hypercritical, maybe slightly tilted to the top end, but I think that really high end stuff is giving it that perception, which again, I don't even, from a mastering point of view, I'd probably just low pass that and kind of leave it. And that would probably, altering that would probably alter the perception enough without having to do anything else.
What's interesting is that was a last minute change about half an hour ago. And
always the way.
It was Ozone. No, what it does, I just put on Ozone and I went, okay, I wonder what it's going to do. So I do always let Ozone do a few things at the end and I bypass things in and out. So I kept the imager, I think the impact, and I kept the EQ in. I didn't take clarity. Clarity wasn't needed. And yeah, what the EQ was doing was, it was wanting to take out a dB with a really, really wide bell. It was like a dB out around 70, really wide. And then it wanted to add in from about 12 to 20k, it was like this shelf that was adding maybe like a dB and a half of brightness. So I wonder if I just had it right to begin with, and that kind of top end from Ozone's just fucking unnecessary.
I would say you had it right. Fuck Ozone. What do they know?
Yeah.
What does AI know?
But yeah,
cool.
I think what I like about this mix is that when I did it first on the Nanos, and this wasn't even because I didn't have time to do like the curves that I've got on the top end, so I just did Harman, and I was really impressed with how the Harman with the Nanos translated to the iLouds and again to the Calais and the other speakers that I've got. Even tried the Angry Boxes and stuff. And yeah, I just felt like the mix translated really well. All the decisions that I made on the Nanos, and then for a little bit on the Sonys, just everything kind of made sense a little bit. I was kind of going back and forth and umming and ahhing about the reverb level, because I think I did probably have it as dry as what you did. Now, I wasn't referencing your mix intentionally, because I never ever like to feel distracted.
That'd be a terrible idea anyway.
So I was like, because there was no rough for us to work on, because Ed said, like, I couldn't find it on Spotify. I didn't even know who the artist was. So I was like, right, I've not even got a rough to work by. So I just did it with the way I thought it was going to work. And I think what I was happy with the Nanos, because I've learned the Nanos enough to know that you've got to get them to slam. I think I got the impact and the punch better than I have in previous mixes. I think I was able to prioritize the feel and the groove a little bit better. And yeah, I think it's a decent mix. I didn't go over the top with anything. There was no like mid-side trickery involved. There was no like massive imaging going on. I didn't even use stage 1 because I've not got it on the Mac. I think you only get one license. So I was like, no, I'm not going to use stage 1. I'm just going to use a bit of reverb, bit of delay, EQ. I used for the bass, I used Emra's Bass Shaper plugin, which I don't think is out yet. I think it's a way to get released. Used that. Fucking one plugin on the bass, job done.
Yeah, it does sound good, that.
And kick shaper on the kick. And I just kept it really, really simple. I just genuinely EQ and compression and a bit of reverb and delay. 2 bus I had the Ruby, which like from Acoustica, I just like the line amp in it, shaving a little bit of top end off, and God Particle, and going into Master Plan. And I had the Sonimus Brits and it's now end console. The end console routing throughout it, and yeah, it's just easy, simple, balls to the wall, just mixed it like without over complicating it. I'd say this is the least complicated mix that I've ever done. I just got the mix and went drums, bass, snare, vocals, guitar there. There was a lot of clashing that I had to work on with the guitars, so I was taking out a lot of 3K in certain guitars. There were certain guitars that I thought were just maybe a little bit too much, so I was taking out 3K and adding a little bit of 3K, 2.5K, and some of the other guitars that I felt maybe could have needed it. And I was just watching the clashing a lot, so I was able to have all of these guitars playing at once in the chorus without them clashing over the top of each other and just kind of becoming kind of, you can get a mid-range clusterfuck with guitars, especially with distorted guitars and choruses, and it's just like all that upper mid-range just going so you've got to kind of tone it down a little bit. So yeah, I listened to it, translates well on headphones, translates well on all the speakers that I tried, and I'm just like, that would just be a send it to the client mix and let's see what the feedback is. Just not overthought.
I mean, if I was the client, all I'd be saying is dial back all the reverbs 5 dB and take off ozone. That's good to go.
Yeah.
Very, very good start to the year, Paul. This is going to be a difficult year, isn't it?
Okay, well, but without further ado, let's listen to Ed Thorne's mix of Roses.
Red flags ain't red roses. tell you that red flags ain't red roses. Red flags ain't red roses. Red flags ain't red roses. And I can tell you that I saw red flags and I was picking them up. Felt like heaven surrounded and lust almost for me. Yeah, I thought it was love. They were pretty until I found her and said I was sleeping in the bed that I made, and there's no one else to blame. And now I've had it, oh, I've had enough. I was picking them up like I was building a bouquet of roses. Building a bouquet of roses. Building a bouquet of roses. Oh, red flags ain't roses.
The Working Audio Tools podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at DistroKid for all of your musical distribution needs. For a little bit more, $39.99 a month, you can have 2 artists on your roster, which includes everything just mentioned. Additionally, synced lyrics in Apple Music, further streaming analytics statistics. You can create a customizable record name. Mine, for example, is Ed Thorne Rhythm and Records. And you can customize release dates, pre-order dates, iTunes pricing, and again, much more. Now, if you're an artist manager or a record label, the Ultimate Bundle gives you up to 100 artists for just $89.99 a year. And you get 1 terabyte of instant file sharing, which is useful, but also contact information for thousands of playlist curators on Spotify. This is really useful so you can pitch your artist music to playlist curators around the world. Only available in the Ultimate Bundle from DistroKid. All right, that was my mix of Roses, and I'm a little bit relieved because I'd forgotten what that sounded like, and after hearing Paul's, I was a little bit intimidated, I have to admit, and then thought, not sure mine's even that good, but no, I'm quite happy with that. The BVs are in there, they're in the breakdown. I'm not sure why they're not at the beginning. I'd go and check, but it's done now, so I don't really care.
Yeah, it was a separate file. It was an intro kind of separate file, so you maybe just missed it.
Or wrongly assigned it, or yeah, maybe it looked like there was nothing on it, and I just did a pull third and deleted it. I mean, my first thoughts listening back to mine was, I wish that shaker would fuck off. And then I realised the snare on my heads. I remembered this. I had it quite prominent, about 120 to 150, which worked fine on the Amphions, but on the heads it was quite prominent for some reason. And I think I've done that to keep the low mid content to compensate for the amount of guitar presence or the prominence of the guitars. But yeah, sorry, what are your thoughts?
It's quite interesting you say that because it's actually part of my notes as well.
Okay.
What I think you've done is I think you have added too much low mid to the snare. And what I think that's doing is that it seems like you've kind of I don't know if you've high-passed the guitars too much to kind of leave body for the snare, because for me what it seems like is that I would much prefer for the snare to have less body and to give that more to the guitars and to allow the guitars to fill out a little bit more, because it seems like for me that the snare is maybe a dB and a half too loud for me. It's either that or the guitars are too wide. I think I spoke to you about this a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
On my headphones, like the HEs, the ARRI Organics and the Ananda Nanos, your mix does this thing where it sounds unnaturally too wide to me. Like I know the way that they should sound, and they should sound like here, but the guitars sound here. So I don't know if it's mid-side that you've done, but they sound like unnaturally too wide. And I think what it does is that translation-wise, it makes the drums sound here and the guitar sound here, and it feels like there's like a gap. It feels like there's like a bit of a hole in the spatial side of the mix a little bit. It's a good mix. It's just that I feel that at parts it's a little bit left lopsided. Because I think especially in that kind of verse guitar, you've chosen to kind of, I don't know if it's wide panned or whatever, but you've panned it to the left. And for a long period of time, there's nothing on the right. So it just kind of feels like the mix is lopsided to the left, and then in the chorus it comes in, and I think you've got a nice left to right balance. I just think that guitar, because I think I stereoed it or something like that. I think I did. I don't know if there was more files or whatever I did, but I think I had it more like that so it was left and right. And I sometimes find, I understand why people do it because it can give you a nice bit of separation. But I always find sometimes if you've just got one thing on one side, it just makes the mix sound lopsided a little bit.
Okay. I think I know what you mean.
I think this is one we'll leave for the comments. I think obviously I'm going to say this. I think your mix is slightly too dry. So this is going to be one for the comments because I think generally this is, for me, it doesn't stop the mix being a good mix. I think this is preference, and I would like to hear people's preferences. It's not too dry to the point where it's making a bad mix. It's not a bad mix. And I think that, again, the way that the ambience I've added doesn't make it a bad mix. I think it is genuinely a preference thing, but probably we could meet in the middle, and a Paul Third Ed Thorn meet in the middle.
As always.
So with the sides of the guitars, I don't know if it's not got enough low end in it, if they've been high pass too much or too wide, or they're just too quiet. I kind of feel like in this mix, it feels like the drums are taking the priority and the guitars are taking a bit of a back seat. I find it a little bit hard to distinguish the parts. Now, I genuinely do believe that this is a drummer and a guitarist thing. Many people may listen to my mix and feel like the guitars are too loud. I would be like, well, probably going to make sense.
I would say we've prioritised them the other way round for sure, probably based on our original instrument skill set. So again, me and in the middle. Yeah, my guitar's maybe up a fraction, snare back a fraction. On yours, maybe drums up a fraction. We'd meet in the middle in it, and it would work. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what's hard for me with these songs, because this one was genuinely as simple as drums, bass, vocals, and guitars. There's a lot of guitar parts, and I'm like, so the guitars have got to fill up a lot of that mix to really kind of fill it up. And I kind of felt that, I don't know if it was a thing where you were trying to overly separate things. I think you got good separation. Like when the toms hit, you've got this really nice separation on the toms, and you did something that I was trying to do a lot in this mix. I tried not to overthink it, but I did spend a little bit of time on the toms, because I felt, because I didn't sample them, I felt like I wanted to have that kind of a do-do-do kind of a thump. You got a really nice thump, but still a lot of nice kind of slap on the top of the toms. So I think you've done a really nice job with the toms, and they panned out really well. And something that my mix doesn't have, I don't know if I've not had it, I've obviously not had it not enough in the mix, is the tambourine. I think the texture of the tambourine in your mix is really nice, because it's like you've used that as the top end. So like you've got this nice kind of top end in it where it just kind of follows the mix and adds a little bit of it's dynamically it adds something. Yeah,
it's a common cheat that when you've not got top end in drums, stick a tambourine on 2 and 4 and it complements the snare.
Yeah, and I think you did a really good job with that, and I was listening to that going, that'd be, if I was to bring that up higher in my mix, I actually probably would have added something really nice. And because Nicholas from Panorama Mastering, when he was on, he talked about that, where it's an easy trick where, again, if you've not got top end, add a tambourine. However, when he did his mix, we thought the tambourine he got maybe a little bit too over exuberant with the tambourine.
Yeah, he leans into percussion a lot for that reason.
Yeah. So, I thought it added a really nice texture. And yeah, I just genuinely think that it's the drums have been prioritised a little bit. You can't remember what you did on the guitars, can you? Because I was asking you, have you done minside? Have you done something that's widened the guitars?
Well, thinking about it, I think you may have nailed it on the head. I vaguely remember doing some mid-side thing, and I have a feeling what I did was I high-passed the side signal to about 100 and high-passed the mid-signal to about 200 to let the bass and snare set in. And I played around with high-pass in the snare, and I think what I should have done is done a shelf instead of a high-pass, or both, and just evened that out a little bit, because it is a bit, it's a bit thuddy, it's a bit prominent.
It's nice, but it's a nice sound. Like, I guarantee in isolation, people would be like, that is a cracking snare sound. But in the mix, I just feel like it takes too much of that low-mid content of the overall mix, and the guitars need that to kind of fill out. Yeah,
and in hindsight, I think that tubby nature of the snare it actually makes the groove a little too heavy and
I agree.
A bit too ploddy.
Yeah,
which it's amazing how something as simple as a few dB at a low frequency on the snare can affect the groove. It's fuck me.
Snare's really, really, really difficult, and that's why I try and overcomplicate. Sorry, I try not. That's the old
We're both
Paul
good at
third.
doing that.
That's the old Paul third. I tried not to overcomplicate it. So again, it is just trying to, just EQ, compression, do less is more. What I did notice was that one thing I didn't do, because I just wanted to kind of see how the mix landed for you without automating the chorus. I didn't do the automation in the chorus this time. I think you did. Did you lift it maybe by a dB? Sounded like it. I could see on the wave forums. Looks like the chorus jumps a little bit.
Yeah, I did a couple of things on that. I automated the master bus. I think I do like 0.9 or 1.1. I can't remember. Just the way Pro Tools lands naturally, it does one or the other. And then there's a bit of automation with the density in God Particle. I think in the verse I had it at like 25%, which would be, because it's out of 100% is 50%, isn't it?
Yeah, correct, yeah.
So I would have had it down on the dial, I would have had it at like 30 or 40 and then put it up to 60. I think I did 30 and 60. I think the main two comparisons for me would be, I think you were definitely more effective, smooth and musical with the width. But I think I got more...
It was very natural. I genuinely just panned it. So I think I had the overheads in the rooms at 100%. I think I had some of the chorus guitars 100%, but I backed off the verse guitars maybe to 85, 90%, just so when the chorus kicks in, you know what I mean, they're not kind of getting in the way. But yeah, I didn't do any widening or anything like that. I just panned them naturally and just let them do their thing.
But I think dynamically, I got a bit more contrast.
I think as a drummer, you have this instinct, that's just this intuition, that's the right word, where you just know how the groove should be. And that's something that, again, I was battling at this mix. That's why I stuck with the nanos for so long, was just to focus on drums, bass. Drums and bass, add the vocal in, get it feeling when it's right. And then I got the guitars to work around that. But what was interesting was when I went to the iLouds, I actually had to bring up the snare a dB. So in the headphones, I actually wanted the snare. I thought the snare was right, but on the speakers, I needed another dB of snare. But I'd already listened to your mix, and that, and in the back of my mind, I was like, "Oh my god, have I got my snare too quiet?" But then that's what's good about having so many references, is that going from like loads of different headphones and then going to different speakers. What I'm doing now is I'm just sitting listening to it with fresh ears, thinking, as an overall big picture, does this mix make sense? Is there anything that's glaring to me? No, nothing was glaring to me. So I was like, right, okay, that's that done. Not over-analysing little micro details, which is what we used to do. But yeah, I think that, look, what it shows us is that we are in a very good position where we are starting to learn from the interviews that we've been doing. We're learning that less is more. We're honing our craft to the point where I generally think in another 6 months it'll be, two great mixes. And I think that's what we've got here. It's just kind of preference things. But
I think for as the start of season 9, congratulations on us getting to 9 seasons of a podcast. Bear in mind, everyone, 90% of podcasts don't get past 6 episodes.
Yep.
I think we're coming up to about 70 something
like that,
episodes just on YouTube, obviously, plus the Produce Like a Pro ones. I think that's a good start to the season, and I think you're right. In 6 months' time, we endeavour to do at least a multi-track or a mix a month. Paul had originally promised once a week, but I think he's pissed himself at that idea.
Yeah, being realistic this year.
Yeah, I think once a month is realistic, because I know my year's kind of looking busy already, which is great. So it's a good start. The plan for the rest of this season, I think, is more of these. There's 1 or 2 interviews coming up, and we will no doubt improvise some more, hopefully useful and informative content. If not, join us to hear us chatting shit, which we do very well.
We do. Now, on reflection for you, what speaker in this mix do you think was the right reference? Do you think the heads were the right reference, or do you think the Amphions were?
Ooh, good question. I think actually the heads might have been the right reference. The Amphions I just prefer working on. But the way I've got them, it is slightly narrower than I would like because of room width issues. And the heads deliver this top end thing that, you definitely start hearing compared to the Amphions when you go to the Amphion. So it's a bit like, ooh, all of a sudden everything's a bit brighter and wider. And
I wonder if that's why you widened the guitars a little bit, because see, I've got the same thing with the iLouds. See, that because the MTMs have got that MTM format, what you'll find is, if you watch the podcast episode with Dale Chapman, he was talking a lot about this and about the directivity of the MTM. So you'll get a really focused center channel, like your kick, your snare, anything that's in the middle, you'll get very, very focused. But I do find that when I was listening on the MTMs, I wanted to widen them. I was like, widen them. The backing vocals, I wanted to widen them, and I was kind of struggling. It reminded me when I used to listen to the Ananda Nanos with crossfeed, because that was like unnecessarily narrowing everything. I would feel like I wanted to make things wider. And I wonder if that's maybe what's happened with the Amphions with you there, and with the heads. I think if you probably would have spent more time with the heads, you maybe would have backed off that widening of the guitars. I would need to be in your room to hear it. But I'm just thinking about, if we're learning, we're monitoring, like what I do with the headphones is learning, right? Maybe you can't trust the Amphions fully. Maybe there's something about the heads that you can use a certain part of the mix for, and then with the Amphions you could, maybe your Amphions are like your speaker and Nanos. You know what I mean? Where it's like, because you always talk about the transients on the Amphions. You're like, Paul, the transients are like nothing I've heard.
I mean, they're not PMC punchy, and arguably the PSIs were better for transients.
Right.
But they just, Amphions are hard to explain. I've tried in several videos now. They just do something that is enjoyable and revealing and directs you what to do mixing. I think the contrast between the two, the Amphions and the heads, is a very good setup. I wasn't sure I was going to keep the heads, but actually they just highlight the opposite of the Amphions.
Which
so
is
if you
good.
get in between the two, it then should work. And the angry boxes, as I've documented on my channel, are good just effectively as a bandpass speaker, so you're not relying on the low end and the top end for energy and width, etc. So between the three, I mean, fuck, if I can't mix on these, I'll go and get a job at McDonald's like that guy kindly suggested before Christmas.
But I think this is going to be something that we are going to be talking a lot about, as me and Ed have got. We're kind of fixed setups now. We will learn our setups more and more, and we will learn what kind of tells us the truth more than other things. I mean, I think for the low end and, the transients and gauge and compression, the Ananda Nanos are very good for me. However, I did take a bit of time with the Tantrum Angry boxes, and what I found with them is that in terms of the speakers in this room, they are very fast. Like, because it's a sealed, like, small enclosure, the transients are like, pop, 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 pop. I'm like, wow. And it's so clean. Like, it's very, very, you could hear the distortion that other speakers add when you have the tantrums in. Very low distortion, very dry, like very dry sounding speakers. Very, very dry. But what I like is that I know I could judge compression on these. So if something's pokey, if something's poking out and something's not sitting right on the angry boxes, I know that I need to compress it. That's what they're good for. That's what I like about the MTMs. The MTMs are really fast. But what I did find with the MTMs is that they are very enjoyable. So I don't know if the Amphions do the same thing with you, where not that it enhances the transient, it's got very good phase coherence, but what I find it does is that you groove like the Nanos when you get them right, but you're just like, oh, this sounds great, this is amazing, and you kind of feel like you don't want to touch it. Where maybe just could have did my job. Maybe if I started the mix on the iLouds, maybe I would have did the same way and I would have got it till I was punching and slamming. But I'm finding it interesting how all of these things give me a certain representation, and it's not about trying to get the mix as a whole, everything to sound perfect on it. It's just knowing that I should nail it on that, I should nail it on that, I should nail it on this, and I should nail it on that. And if you have that average, like what I found with this mix, I'm like, the mix translates pretty well on everything I listen to. And then from there, for me and you, it's just about your clients, and then all you're doing is making adjustments. So I want to get to a point, and I know you do as well, where a client listens to a mix and they're not listening to it like a mix engineer. They're not hearing flaws in the mix. You know what I mean? They're just allowing themselves to hear the mix and say, creatively, that up there, that there, maybe try and move that a little bit there. That's to me what I'm finding a mix engineer's job is.
Well, the
It just
goal is people listen to a song, not a mix.
Yes,
If they listen to a
totally.
mix, it's a mix. If they listen to a song, you've mixed it properly.
Correct, 100%.
I think.
Yeah,
Now I have
agree.
a slight thing to admission here. Actually, I've got two things to admit. My mix was fully in the box. Didn't use. I think I used some analog stuff when I mastered it, but because I had the studio in a mess, it was all in the box at the time, which is interesting. I want to go back and do a fully analog version of this for my own amusement, if I can be bothered. The other admission is I did what I said I was going to do. I sold my PSIs. I have invested in some more Wes audio gear, but it hasn't arrived yet. So I am sticking to my New Year's resolution. I'm not buying anything this year. I just can't help that it hasn't arrived yet. So if you see posts of me getting new gear, I did genuinely buy it last year, and it's arriving this year. With that in mind, I think that's a good place to end the first
I would say so.
episode. Speaking of the MTM Precisions, I think I might be getting sent a set as well, but they're going to be going
good.
in my home studio, home production. I'm going to have like a writing part in my new flat, which is all going ahead. So that's going to be fun. And the Amphion 115s are going to be my lounge speakers. And I believe I've also got the same topping setup coming.
Yeah.
That you've got, which I'm really excited about because this year I want to get my head round headphone mixing, mid-side stuff, and some other stuff will inevitably come up that we will document on the channel.
Rabbit holes of audio.
On that blonde bombshell, Paul, that was a very good mix, very good start to the year. Well done. It's been emotional. See you on the next one.
Bye-bye.